Hi, I'm Dana Perino, in for Bill O'Reilly, who is on vacation. Thanks for watching us tonight. Let's get right to our top story, the escalating crisis with North Korea. Vice President Mike Pence stood in the demilitarized zone just feet from the North Korean border yesterday, declaring a new era in America's handling of the rogue state. And during a visit to Seoul, the Vice President said this.
Strategic patience has been the approach of the last American administration and beyond. For more than 2 decades, the United States and our allies have worked to peacefully dismantle North Korea's nuclear program and alleviate the suffering of their people. But at every step of the way, North Korea answered our overtures with willful deception, broken promises, and nuclear and missile tests. Over the past 18 months, North Korea has conducted 2 unlawful nuclear tests and an unprecedented number of ballistic missile tests, even conducting a failed missile launch as I traveled here for this visit. The era of strategic patience is over.
And during an interview with Fox's Ainsley Earhardt today, President Trump outlined his strategy to deal with this standoff.
I don't want to telegraph what I'm doing or what I'm thinking. I'm not like other administrations where they say we're going to do this in 4 weeks, and that doesn't work that way. We'll see what happens. I hope things work out well. I hope there's going to be peace. But, you know, they've been talking with this gentleman for a long time. You read Clinton's book. He said, oh, we made such a great peace deal, and it was a joke. You look at different things over the years with President Obama. Everybody has been outplayed. They've all been outplayed by this gentleman, and we'll see what happens. But I just don't telegraph my moves.
He also told a reporter that North Korea has, quote, gotta behave. Joining us now to analyze from Washington, Fox News contributor Charles Krauthammer, who always behaves, of course. So, Charles, when I knew you were going to be on tonight, the first thing I thought of was that you wrote a column to kick off this year in 2017 on January 5th, and you said the biggest issue is North Korea. What is different tonight than it was on January 5th when that column posted?
Well, that we're actually getting some real resistance from the United States. For 30 years, we acquiesced. We kicked the can down the road. We entered into negotiations under the Clinton administration, the Bush administration, and Obama, all of which we were played. I think President Trump is absolutely right. We were played. People talk about the leader of North Korea being a madman and insane. Well, I've come to the view that he's actually exceptionally clever and rational in his own way, which is these people, he and his father and grandfather, have been able to play off the world with a very weak hand to survive, to control the regime, and up until now, to be undeterred in their quest to become a nuclear power.
So if he is rational in his own way, as you describe it, when he hears the Vice President say that the era of strategic patience is over, what do you think he understands that to mean?
Well, I think he begins to think that this may be the first administration that is serious when it says we will not allow something. Now, the allowing a nuclear weapon is already gone. That's happened. They've done 5 tests. They have nukes. But what they don't have yet is the capacity to deliver it with a push of a button to the United States. And that's where they are rushing. That's where they are doing test after test. That's where they showed the world just this weekend with that amazing array of missiles that this is their prime regime objective, to achieve the position where they can actually push a button and launch an ICBM that could destroy an American city, at which point they become an intolerable threat. And I think the Trump administration is saying, obviously to the Chinese as well, and that may be the key to a peaceful resolution of this, we will not allow that. We can't live under the thumb and the threat of this regime.
Do you think that last week's strike in Afghanistan, when our military dropped the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, killing those ISIS fighters, do you think that that sent a message both to China and to North Korea? I mean, I sort of feel like North Korea has stopped listening in some ways, but China is paying attention. Do you think that they took notice?
I think it was a very important message because the main threat from North Korea now, they have not gone nuclear. This is not unlike what the New York Times said, like the Cuban Missile Crisis. The enemy is not a nuclear-armed opponent who could destroy the world with us, cause Armageddon. But what they can threaten, what does deter us, is the fact that they have a vast army on the DMZ 30 miles from Seoul. 20 million people are today in South Korea within range of North Korean artillery. That's the threat. Death and destruction of an untold scale. And I think what the mother of all bombs demonstrated is we might have the weaponry to either destroy or degrade that capacity without going nuclear. We used to have tactical nuclear weapons in South Korea. The one thing the U.S. would never do is to be the first to use nuclear weapons, even tactically. So that is not a real threat. But I think what the Moab demonstrated is we may not have to use nukes. Every one of these has a radius of 1 mile of destruction. We can wipe out the formations you have. If we can do that, then the threat to Seoul, to the destruction of the capital of an ally, is very much mitigated, and then we are very much undeterred. So I think it was a very important and powerful message.
So when you think of that region and the geopolitical problems that they've had, you see a Trump administration who, as a candidate, was sort of in China's face after that one-on-one meeting, and we have seen that these one-on-one meetings for President Trump mean a lot. He establishes a relationship. He doesn't mind changing his opinion on something that he might have campaigned on if it means that his strategic goal, in this case of deterring North Korea from being able to fire a nuclear weapon that could hit the United States. How important is that in this relationship when you look at Japan, South Korea, and those alliances, and what we might be able to do to try to push China in order to help us?
To me, the Chinese option has until now been Lucy in the football. They keep promising, tantalizing, yes, we might do this. They turn away a coal shipment from North Korea this week. Everybody cheers. That's not going to make a difference. In the end, China can bring down the regime if it wants. I think what we need to do with China is to offer them a grand bargain. We know you don't want to see the regime collapse. You don't want a South Korea expanding to be on your border. We understand that. Why don't we offer you a solution where we Finlandize North Korea, where in the end you help to bring down the regime, but you can decide who succeeds, non-nuclear North Korea, not allied with the West. It's not an expansion of the West up to your border, but it will be Finlandized the way that Finland in the Cold War was committed to a pro-Soviet foreign policy, but had its own internal political regime. That, I think, is the one solution that would be it would be the least destructive. It would be a peaceful transition. I think it is, however, unlikely, but that's the deal we ought to make. But in the end, we can't rely on the Chinese. We're going to have to deter the North Koreans ourselves. If we can get the Chinese to do it, it would be a welcome miracle. But miracles are fairly scarce these days.
Yeah, you can't count on them, that's for sure.
That's right.
A last question to you, going back to that column on January 5th, because you wrote that the principal strategic challenge facing the United States is the rise of revisionist powers, Russia, China, and Iran. And I wondered what you might think about in those capitals, in Iran and in Russia today, what they might be thinking as they try to figure out what President Trump's foreign policy is going to be about.
I think the message will be more effective in Iran than anywhere else. After all, they, like North Korea, are on the threshold of going nuclear. The deal that we signed with them was a disaster. It will expire in any case, even if it's not being cheated upon, as we speak, within just a few years, and then they will develop a nuclear arsenal. They have to worry and think about what the Americans will do in the end. Will we be in a position to say to Iran, we're not going to allow you to go nuclear? A lot of the Iranian perception will depend on whether we can enforce that with North Korea.
Excellent as always, Charles. Thank you so much.